Hello and welcome to another episode. Shh. Keep it down. Keep it down.
Shut the fuck up, Alan.
Welcome to another episode of Diminishing Returns. As you can tell by this hilarious intro, we're doing A Quiet Place.
Quiet Place. More like a moderately loud film with no minimal dialogue. More like a minimal dialogue place.
Yes. Well,
I tell you what, I watched it earlier today to refresh my memory, and it might be just because I had the volume cranked right up, but it was very loud.
That voice, that very loud voice there, is Sol Harris. My name is Alan Turing, and joining us this week after a long gap since he was last on the show, travelling the world as he is. Please welcome Connor Murray.
Yes, lads, how's it going?
Oh, so loud.
He's back. Connor, when were you last on? Was it Quentin Tarantino? Was that?
It was the kind of middle era. The ones that I did, it was Kill Bill and Death Proof. It was the ones that I did.
And I believe you may have popped up in some sort of outtakes clip show compendium that had audio recorded during then as well.
But it is like a year and a half ago or something. Connor, you're back
Welcome
in
back.
the real country for a change.
Thank you very much.
So you're available to record.
It's great to have working toilets.
Anyway, so we are dealing with A Quiet Place. Now, let me just...
I was just going to draw some parallels here, because I think, was it about... how long ago was it that we did that? I've got it down here, August 2018. So that's roughly 2 or 3 months apart when A Quiet Place came out, isn't it? And now you're back because A Quiet Place Part 2's coming out. See the lines I'm drawing?
Sol, you put up A Quiet Place into our schedule, and I said, what the fuck is A Quiet Place?
I just said, we're doing it, Alan, don't worry about it.
Yeah, and you said...
Non-negotiable.
No,
I said, this
film.
one's non-negotiable.
You said, no, people watched it. And I was like, I've never heard of it. So
It was a big hit. It kind of came out of nowhere. It was an original property, which is very unusual.
Well, basically, I said, fair enough, let's do it. And I didn't look at a trailer. I didn't read anything about it. So when I watched this earlier today, I had no idea what it was. I mean, apart from the title, that's all I had to go on. But it did mean in the beginning, like my first impressions of the film were like, ooh, what's going on? It was some sort of post-apocalyptic. I was trying to work out, what was going on. Post-apocalyptic world, or they can't make any sound, what's going on? And then it's kind of revealed, and this is all set up, it's only the first 10 minutes, it's revealed that it is like a monster that hunts by sound, and that's why you have to be quiet.
Mm.
And I must admit, that was like pretty much the most boring sort of answer to that setup, which is, fair enough, it's a creature horror film, but I was hoping for something a bit deeper, or maybe a bit more metaphorical or something. And because I didn't know what to expect, that was pretty much as disappointing as it could get. Not to say it didn't work, but you know what I mean?
I think I'm going to be quite down on this episode, this film. So I'm hoping you guys can be a bit more positive. I don't actually dislike the film. I should make that very clear up front. But I have a lot of issues with it, and I think in a nutshell, my thoughts on this film are probably best explained as it's a smart film for stupid people. Is that fair?
I think I understand where you're getting at.
Yeah, I see where you're going. It's a great concept and something that in the right hands could be absolutely amazing, but it does just get, for lack of a better word, Hollywoodized the more it goes on.
Yeah, and it is a Bruckheimer production, so that, kind of explains a lot of it. But people loved this. Audiences lapped it up. It made a lot of money.
It struck a chord.
Yeah. But it surprised people. It had this sequel put immediately into production with the original team back. But I think it just kind of came out of nowhere and was... It's not a bad film. I think it's a very difficult film to take real issue with beyond the little things I'm going to be complaining about. So
yeah, I know what you mean. I think as a little kind of relatively small scale horror film, it's like, oh, that's a nice piece of work. But I think the sequel is going to suffer from a different level of expectation. Whereas if this was a big release, then you would be judging it harsher, probably.
Yeah, it's got such a. I think one of the reasons is that it really struck with audiences is it's got such a simple, powerful gesture, at the core of it. That image of John Krasinski just going, shh, like that. And yeah, I mean, sorry, but that's like a very like powerful thing. Like it's a film centered like entirely around that image and concept, and like that's the lasting image in my mind from that film, just everyone going shh like all over the place.
Doesn't he do that in an episode of The Office? Dwight's making a lot of noise and he goes shh.
Well, can I ask, Sol, when this film came out in relation to that film where those kids break into a blind man's house or whatever that is?
Oh, Don't Breathe.
Yeah. Where does this relate to that? Was it before or after?
This was 2 years after Don't Breathe. I hadn't actually drawn a connection there. There's an obvious connection to draw here, which is a film called...
Bird Box.
Shit, what was it? No, not Bird Box. The other one.
Bird Box 2.
There was a Netflix film called, like, Don't Make Any Noise. About Stanley... It's like Stanley Tucci and a girl in the post-apocalyptic world, and if they make any noise, the aliens will eat them.
Oh, really? That sounds like a very direct...
Jesus, yeah.
Yeah. It came out, it was direct to Netflix, and it came out like last year or the year before, and it was it's a classic Bug's Life ants.
So they were sort of separate.
Finding Nemo Shark Tale.
Is it called The Silence?
Yes, that's the one.
I was just looking at Stanley Tucci's CV there.
Yes, yeah. I've not seen it. Apparently it's dreadful.
And it says that it is the man and the teenage daughter, and the daughter is deaf as well. Even that's a connection there. Yep. That sounds very dodgy. Far too much of a coincidence. Not sure about that.
Well, this sort of thing happens. Dennis the Menace, the American Dennis the Menace and the British Dennis the Menace. Nothing to do with one another, but they're both cartoon strip characters about naughty little boys who run around shooting people with slingshots in stripy shirts.
Yeah, but Dennis rhymes with menace. It's like...
but do you know, Alan, both of those comic strip characters debuted within 3 days of one another. That's weird, isn't it? It's just stuff, the zeitgeist is pointing in directions, and subconsciously we do shit. Or, maybe someone maybe John Krasinski read a script called The Silence and went, I'm gonna
I think that's more likely.
They make it.
The interesting thing is, so regardless of that, the interesting thing here is to have a film that's all about sound and the perception of sound, blah blah blah. Having a deaf character, it is a bit of an obvious choice in the sense of that's going to give you something to play with. Certainly, based on A Quiet Place, it feels like it doesn't really go anywhere. It doesn't.
Well, you're talking about it's the whole reason they get Chekhov's serenade at the start.
Yeah, but that could have been anything. You know what I mean? Like the thing that is just like, ooh, it creates a pitch noise or whatever it is. My point is that her being deaf as a relation to this film is all about sound and the very fine details of sound. I don't know. Well, I mean, obviously it's important to the character because she doesn't even hear the thing coming. I don't know. It just feels like we should be making more of that on a metaphorical
I know what you
level,
mean.
I guess. Well, let's begin at the beginning, I suppose. We set up with a little, like I say, about 10-minute chunk, which just quickly sets up the world. We seem to establish some sort of, everyone's gone, but civilization is still kind of knocking about. So it's like a recently post-apocalyptic world, I guess.
Can I just say my piece? Because it kicks off right at the start. I think I would like this film a lot more if I didn't hate all of the characters. And I think I wouldn't hate all the characters if they weren't all so fucking stupid. They all deserve to die, especially that little boy at the start with those batteries. What does he think he's doing? Put the batteries down, you little moron! Idiot! Bad parenting from John Krasinski. What kind of kid is he raising there? I don't want him to have another kid. Little kid deserves to die. Like it's one thing if you say to the kid, look, there's monsters and they'll get you if you make too much noise. And then the kid sort of goes, yeah, whatever, granddad. And then like turns up the rock music. That's one thing, right? But that's not what's happened. This is a post-apocalyptic world they're living in. They've been surviving for long enough for it to be completely, post-apocalyptic wasteland. And they've presumably witnessed the downfall of society. They've presumably seen carnage and death all around them, and they know very well firsthand the implications of what will happen if they make even the slightest bit of noise. So the idea that they wouldn't be able to resist playing with a fucking shitty little rocket ship with the sound on, they couldn't possibly play with it without the fucking batteries in it.
I did think like, why didn't he just let him have the toy? Like, take the batteries out and go, yeah, play with that, because it's not.
Yeah,
you know.
Because the fucking stupid little kid, he's probably done this shit before, and he probably knows if he gives them that toy, they'll get back to the house and they'll be there going, meow, and they'll be like,
that's childhood innocence, Saul. That is childhood innocence being metaphorically represented in this
and
film.
that is what we need to kill.
You're saying that deserves, extermination, in this sort of, new post-apocalyptic world.
Yeah, it's going to get everyone else killed.
Guys, I just spent Christmas with my young nephews, and I'm kind of in favour of that. Let's kill childhood exuberance.
How old are your
nephews? It's annoying.
How old are they?
Well, one of them's 8. The other one's a like 1-year-old baby.
Well,
who was ill and never stopped crying.
The 8-year-old is fine, but yeah, that 1-year-old, like for the next couple of years, you're gonna have some fun with that one, man. It's great. My nephew is 3 right now. I love him to bits, and I'm gonna leave it at that.
But if he did get killed by a sound hunting monster, it wouldn't be a bad thing.
I'd be distraught, but I wouldn't give him a toy with batteries in it if my life depended on being, alive on that. Like that's.
On that note, like if your life depended on not making much noise, would you conceive a child less than 100 days after the end of the world? About a year. Yeah, because the film's set, 472 days, I believe, is the first thing after the aliens come. So that means they must have conceived of the kid about a year after the aliens came.
That's the most irresponsible thing you could possibly do.
There's loads of people are dead. You got to rebuild the human race, haven't you?
No, you don't. Why?
Plus, all the Johnnies have gone out of date.
No, they haven't. That's my problem. That's exactly it. If they'd left it so it was like 5 years after, I'd be like, all right, fair enough. They had an accident. They can't get an abortion in this world, whatever. But condoms are abundant. There's no one, like, they went in that supermarket. There was loads of shit everywhere. Condoms are good for like 4 or 5 years. They wouldn't have any trouble.
Well, maybe they wanted to have a baby if we consider.
They've already got 3 kids.
Well, one of them dead. That's why they had to replace.
Yeah,
it.
they couldn't even look after them properly.
Well, that's why, in these circumstances, you need more kids. You need more, because you're going to have some go. You're going to lose some. Yeah, mortality rate's going up.
I have no sympathy for someone who knows that making the slightest bit of noise is rolling dice with death. Like 50-50, you're going to get killed. And then they purposely produce a noise machine that has no conscious sense of like the need to be quiet. You probably can't muffle it without damaging it.
In this circumstance, I think I would probably go out of my way to find somewhere to live that is A, soundproofed to at least some extent, and B, easy to defend or protected in some way. And they just living on a farm. Let's just be quiet, guys.
They make a huge thing about how the water masks the noise. Well, go live on a lighthouse. go live. There are literally houses in the middle of rivers. They exist. It's stupid. This is my problem with this film. And the biggest issue with it is the film's operating partly. It's trying to operate on that kind of the sort of thing that normally appeals to me, like Michael Crichton books and stuff, where they're like, we're going to walk you through all the intricacies of how this works and this clever thing they've rigged up to work around this problem. And you're meant to think, oh, how clever. They've put flour down all over they put sand everywhere to soften the floor. How clever. They're using woolen Monopoly pieces. How clever. But instead you're just there thinking, no, you fucking morons. Idiots.
Close the curtains. That muffles the
Yeah.
sound. That was the other thing as well. The kind of the whole scale of noises we're allowed to make is just like they walk around barefoot all the time, which I assume is because shoes are so noisy. Like, I'm not saying you should go around in stilettos, but like, are trainers that noisy, really? Pumps?
Well, I think you're a lot lighter on your feet and more aware of what you're doing with your feet. Like, I think you're a lot more likely to accidentally kick something over and knock it if you're wearing a big clunky shoe, whereas if you're going barefoot...
Yeah, but if you're barefoot and you stay in your son's little spaceship thing, you're gonna go,
you're also
fuck!
a lot more likely to stand on a nail or something. And you're also more likely to get infections. You're more likely to not be able to run away as quickly. I mean, I just think the risk to, the risk ratio there is doesn't make any sense. Plus, then they're just...
I don't think they can run away. I think once they've been heard, that's it.
Yeah, that's also why
things are so fast.
That's also why we invented Nike trainers, so that we could run away from wolves faster. Like,
if you're holding a space shuttle and it's making a load of noise, if you just chuck it
Throw
30 yards away, it's going to go to that.
Yeah.
You just stand still; it'll never find you.
And then you can whack it on the head with a shovel when it's looking at it.
Well, I don't know if that's enough. That just seems to rile them up. But yeah, my point is that I think
You're right, Alan. You know how I know you're right? Because there was a whiteboard in the film at one point that said something like "strong armor?" ?
Yeah, that annoyed me. That kind of the most basic kind of this is all the information I know.
Difficult to hurt. Must survive, underlined. Do not die. Be quiet, underlined. What is... Alright, I'm pulling up a picture of it now. I'm going to read it out. The worst, the laziest bit of exposition I've possibly ever seen in a film.
But this is like a year and a half of research he's put in his little basement science laboratories.
472 days later, John Krasinski has written creature, and then he's put a box around it. And he's put bullet point blind.
That's good. That's
Bullet point.
worth knowing that.
Bullet point attack sound. Bullet point armor underlined. Then he's put how many in area ? ? Confirmed 3, and he's drawn a box around 3.
That's the important bit, Sol.
And then he's written survive in a box. And then he's put bullet point medical supplies, bullet point soundproofing, and then he's written what is the weakness. Now to me, that's like if I start trying to write a film and I realise I'm like mapping it out and I realise I've not, I've been at this for like 3 hours and I've got nothing.
It's time to give this one up.
I want to feel like I've done some work, so I just put like beginning, middle, end. Conflict resolved, equilibrium re-established. It is. I mean, come on. This film was praised for its writing.
Well, maybe these characters are just stupid. Maybe that's the point. Maybe they're just not that good at surviving. I mean, that would bear out. He's soldering together a little hearing aid, though. He knows how to do that.
But this is a vanity project from John Krasinski. I don't think he's gonna intentionally do that, because did he produce it or write it or something? Didn't it actually come from him?
He directed it.
Oh, fuck me. Okay, right. He's not gonna make them intentionally stupid then.
He directed it, and then he cast himself and his wife in the 2 lead roles. So it's about as... And, like, to be fair, they're fine.
Yeah.
I mean, I must say, I do not think there is a world in which John Krasinski would have been cast in that role in this film had he not directed it.
I don't know. It fits the requirements, though. I mean, what do you want?
I just don't think you'd ever go to him to lead a movie.
Well, he might not be first on your list, but if you've got a limited budget and you're working your way down,
yeah, you're right. He's not.
I think he's the sort of person who would pop up.
He's famously second or third on people's lists.
It's all right. The first person turns you down.
He was in the running for Captain America, and they gave it to Chris Evans. Imagine not being as good as Chris Evans acting.
I don't know. He's all right. And Emily Blunt, she knows what she's doing. Well, okay, let's deal with the kids then. One of them gets killed straight away, so forget that.
Don't like them. Weird faces, ugly children.
Is that an important
I'm kidding, of course.
So yeah, we've got...
No, they're fine.
We've got Noah Jupe plays the young boy who doesn't do much. Like, he doesn't get a chance to do much, and when he is asked to, it's like perfectly fine. You know, nothing special. Then Millicent Simmons, who plays the teenage girl, who is asked to do a lot more. Like, the emotional weight is on that character a lot of the time. I think she does a really good job, actually. I liked what she did. I think it worked. I think the relationships between them all seemed to work quite well. I guess that's the heart of the story, isn't it? It's as many problems as you might have with the setup and all that. It's about this family. It's about love and you know, the kind of looking after each other and all that sort of thing.
So what happens? They go to the shop to buy some bread or something. Kid starts playing up in the supermarket. We've all been there. Dad tries to be reasonable. Kid shoplifts some batteries. Gets killed on the way back. And then we jump forward to like a fair bit later and they're playing Monopoly. Is that fair if I missed anything out?
Well, I mean, I don't know if the Monopoly was the important bit to get to. Don't know why you stopped there.
They're playing Monopoly, and then one of them knocks over the lamp and sets everything on fire. Mm-hmm. Is there a reason they're not just using an electric torch, given that there's like batteries everywhere?
A lamp is a more
dangerous method of light. Creates more noise than a torch as well. The flickering of the flame.
I think you're all right. There's only so many batteries to go around. Maybe they just hate batteries after what happened. They don't let them in the house.
Yeah, that's fair, yeah. Well, what annoyed me with that bit was there's a kind of noise, and then they look out the window and they're like, oh, it's just a raccoon. And then you're thinking, well, hang on, how's a fucking raccoon survived making all that noise all this for like over a year?
That wasn't the...
And then the thing like kills the raccoon, and it's like, well, now that just raises further questions.
Yeah.
How are those raccoons going around going making like loads of noise, and then not just the raccoon, fucking crickets.
Yeah, loads of noise from.
They keep going out at night, and it's like crickets everywhere. The thing should be going mad, jumping around, stabbing the grass, stab.
And that scene where they do, him and the boy go to the waterfall, and it's so loud that they can talk freely and shout. It's
jarring to suddenly have characters start speaking. Like, what is that? Like 45 minutes, an hour into the film, something like that, and they've not really, other than mouthing along to the sign language sometimes, which seems a bit redundant. It's kind of odd, but not in a bad way. It's just kind of like, oh,
yeah. Well, that's the whole point. But
I must say, to give this film some praise, it is a film that makes real use of the medium of cinema. You know, this isn't something you could do on the stage. This isn't something you could do as a radio play. Really, well, actually, maybe you could. No, not quite like this.
But my point is that again, it feels like not quite there. It's this moment where this boy can release and scream. It just feels like that it needs to be bigger, or it needs to be more emotional somehow, like this a release. Yeah. Whereas more, it's just like, ooh, cheeky opportunity to shout. Oh, you know, that's about as far as we get, rather than being this like massively like life affirming moment.
It feels like John Krasinski realised that there was some like bit of legislation in the Actors Guild contract that he had that said he'd only get royalties if he said like 15 lines, and he had to write a few into the script. That's what it feels like.
But yeah, like that's just a good example of where everything in this film just kind of slightly misses the mark. Like it just feels like it has the potential to be like 30% better, or like on all levels.
I made a note to that effect about the opening scene where the kid dies. That my note is this meant to be profound or something? Because The whole thing where that kid dies up front feels like it's meant to be saying something, but I don't think anything about this film is really saying anything.
Yeah, I that's it. It just feels like this is a really great setup that could have a lot of depth, and we don't get that. Like, even the film itself doesn't really play with sound very much, which would seem the obvious thing to do. There's nothing particularly interesting in that.
I was really looking forward to that when I watched that. I was looking forward to like clever sound design and stuff. I thought that would be a really heavy element, but no, it's just the most conventional thing. And the aliens
Absolutely.
make like what weird clicks and stuff, kind of, don't they?
Yeah.
You know, or it's just not the.
This is something that really annoyed me, because this film got thrown a very generous nod at the Oscars for sound mixing or sound editing. And, like, fair enough. It's a kind of, that's the category it probably most deserves to be acknowledged in. But then I remember that after the award went to Bohemian Rhapsody, one of the only awards Bohemian Rhapsody actually deserved, there were all these people going, it's outrageous, the Oscars is rigged, like, they don't even think about what they're doing. How can you not give the award to A Quiet Place? The whole film's about sound. Of course it has the best sound. And it's like, well, no, it doesn't. The whole film's about sound, but that doesn't mean the sound design and the sound mixing is better than a film with... Like, if anything, it's a more simplistic sound mix, because you haven't got any fucking dialogue to worry about.
Yeah. I mean, isn't the obvious thing to do to, like, cut out the lights, make it dark, until they're having to get through something by sound as well? Do you know what I mean? Just have a scene like that, play with that. You've got a deaf character. Yeah. How is that going to affect your sound mix? There's a couple of times where, like, we're obviously from her point of view and it's deaf and, like, we can't hear anything. But, like, and then what? Nothing comes of it. It's, yeah, I don't know. Or, like, if you put us into her character, but then we can see what she can't. So when this creature's behind her, she can't hear it, but we can see it. So the fact that we can't hear it doesn't matter.
So, I mean, what else happens? They go for, like, a walk. There's an old man. The old man screams at them.
Yeah, well, obviously, what they basically come across this old man and his wife, we presume, an older woman and his wife. She's been killed by the creature, and he's obviously like, right, I'm going to give up, I'm going to kill myself. But then he seems to do it in a moment where he's seen them. He's seen these fellow human survivors.
Yeah, he does it maliciously. It's bizarre.
Yeah, he's like, well, I'm going to attract this creature now. And obviously he's been surviving with his wife for this long, and I appreciate losing your wife might be the final straw. But then surely meeting other human survivors and going, oh my God, there are others. Maybe I could pally up with them.
Not just other human survivors, but a child. That means something to a lot of people.
Yeah.
Then, yeah, he gives his daughter a hearing aid slightly before that as well. He's like, this one's going to work. And she's like, none of them work, for fuck's sake. And she gets angry about it. And it's just the most blatant setup when he gives her that thing that, oh, that's going to kill the alien at the end.
Well, I didn't necessarily think, oh, that's going to be, kill the alien, but I thought it was going to do something, like her hearing or not hearing is going to have an impact on this. And it ends up being not really relevant to that. It's just a device that squeals, I think that's all it is.
But that's what really annoys me, is it's not this clever thing. It basically just makes a loud, high-pitched noise. And that just begs the question of, wait, you've gone like a year and a half and you haven't tried making a really loud, deafening noise at the aliens.
That was another general point. It's like, they haven't done anything in a year and a half. It's like they haven't even got a cool, like, booby trap system as an alarm. Oh, well, there is some implication they have, because when they see the farm from a distance and the lights are red, that's like a warning that it's been overrun or whatever. But, like, in terms of, the rocket, they set the fireworks off as a major distraction. That's obviously supposed to be a last resort thing, I guess, or they'd set that up because they knew she'd make a load of noise when she was giving birth.
Yeah, that's set up specifically for the pregnancy, was the implication I got.
And I like that, but then the kind of fear that when he sends the boy off to do it and sort that out, and I guess it's just sending him out on his own he's worried about, but I don't know, because basically they all get separated. It goes back to the wife, and they're okay. She's had the baby, but then the kids have gone off somewhere, and they're lost in the fields. And it was just like, well, aren't they just going to walk back to the house? I mean, they know their way. Do you know what I mean? It's like it's only the same as any other day. We'll be quiet, or the creature's actually sniffing around right now, so let's just not move until it's wandered off. Do you know what I mean? It's like there was this. They get the impression that they think their kids are so stupid that they're just going to start making loads of noise unless they're there constantly.
Well, yeah, but one of his kids was told, if you put batteries in that toy, it will kill you. You will die. And then he did it anyway. So, would you trust your kids if that was the spawn of your loins?
Yeah.
No, the answer is no.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of set pieces, like the kids fall into a grain silo, and then the creature jumps in with them. That's just all right. It doesn't really play out to anything, and then they get trapped in the car. This car apparently a lot tougher than a grain silo because it can't break into it. I don't know. It's all fine, but it feels a bit flat.
That's the whole film for me, I think. It's all fine, but a bit flat.
Yeah. And
I find it amazing that so many people talk about how tense and, like, full-on and heavy a viewing experience it is. And, it left them on the edge of their seat. Because I just didn't get that at all either time I watched this film. And, I watched it once in a cinema and then once with headphones in. So I've had two different auditory experiences of the film, and
the ending of that, which is basically John Krasinski sacrificing himself, it worked. It worked in the sense that I was not expecting them to actually go through with it. I thought he'd sort of get saved. I thought her hearing aid would turn on and save him at the last minute.
I think that's the benefit of it being quite a comparatively small film, that they let the protagonist essentially die at the end, which is actually quite unusual for a film like this. So I do have a good deal of respect for them actually following through on that.
And they have this distinct moment where he tells her he loves her and all that, which was a bit sort of forced in the actual reality of that situation. But yeah, I was kind of all right with all that bit. That's the bit that worked for me, and that's what got me through the film. Like I say, I quite liked the film. In that sense, I think it's just a bit of failed potential, really, if anything.
Yeah, well, that's it. I think this is a good film, and I think had I seen it with no buzz whatsoever, I'd probably think, oh, nice little, decent, enjoyable, horror film. But I think because it got such mainstream acclaim and success, I think I'm kind of pushing back against it. Like, well, come on, it's not that good.
Well, that is what I got. I got it with no buzz. I didn't even know what it was. So
I was on the ship when this whole thing came out, and the thing is, I was probably on the other side of the planet in a foreign country, and I still knew it was coming out. I still knew it was very hype. So I don't know how Alan could be oblivious to it. That's just sort of my perspective on it. So I was kind of eager to watch it, and I watched it and then quickly realized pretty much all the things that you guys said.
I don't have a great deal else to say about A Quiet Place, really. I think it's very solid. I don't think it really does anything surprising at any point.
Nope.
It's weird because I feel as though the basic concept of you can't make any noise has been done many times before, but I can't really think of any examples. Although you did point out "Don't Breathe" when we started, Alan, which I suppose was that premise. It's one of those things. Great idea for a film, but could have been done better. But definitely not done badly. Everything's just done competently. It's very competently directed, competently shot. It's just lacking some sort of spark, I think. But
what I'm kind of sad about is that, for sure there are things in there that could have been done amazing, but perhaps now all chances of those have been shot, because if a very talented horror director, horror writer want to get together to do something like that, the executives will just say, so it's like A Quiet Place then. And
Well, it didn't stop Stanley Tucci doing it.
yeah, but that's not good, no? Yeah, like, my point is that it's kind of shot all chances of some great work really being done in that for a while now, for at least maybe a decade, I think.
Well, I loved Don't Breathe, which is very similar, I suppose, in that, it is... Have you seen it, Connor, Don't Breathe?
Nah, I haven't seen it. My life on land is just one giant catch-up to all the stuff I missed when I'm away.
I highly recommend it because, do you remember that film Panic Robots or something? Little short film? I remember at uni, listeners who aren't aware, Connor and myself both lived with each other at university, actually. There was a short film that was released on YouTube called Attack de Panico.
Oh, yes!
In English, Panic Attack. And it's basically a 5-minute effects reel of a load of robots blowing up a city.
I love that short. I thought it was great, yeah.
Yeah, and that's it. Connor, you loved it. You thought it was amazing. And I was like, it's fucking bullshit.
It's great.
Because it's literally just robots blowing shit up. There's no story. There's nothing resembling a plot. It's just an effects reel. But Sam Raimi obviously saw something in Fede Alvarez, the guy who directed that short. Uruguay. And Sam Raimi basically brought him over to the US and got him to direct the remake of Evil Dead in 2013. Saw something in him. I thought the remake of Evil Dead was directed phenomenally well, and Fede Alvarez has become one of my favourite current working directors. So, like, hats off to you guys. You saw something in that I missed. That I should have.
Yeah,
seen.
Well, there you go. That's your opinion thoroughly shitted on, isn't it?
Anyway, his second film, which was largely made with the entire creative team of the Evil Dead remake, more or less, Don't Breathe, which was a critically acclaimed horror thriller about some robbers who break into an old veteran's house. They know he's blind and he's got a load of money in his house, but they weren't anticipating that he's basically like Rambo. And as soon as he gets wind that they're in the house, he like locks it down and starts hunting them down one by one. And it's an incredibly tense, incredibly effective thriller. And because he's blind, it's largely don't make any noise, and the main character trying to be quiet. And so I suppose that is the same kind of tropes being done, and done really well. But I suppose the difference is Don't Breathe didn't enjoy the same level of mainstream success because it was a kind of grimy R-rated horror movie.
Yeah,
quite dark, yeah.
Yeah, whereas A Quiet Place is, a PG-13 Bruckheimer adventure horror. Like
I say, it's ultimately a story of like family love and stuff. I think that's it's got a more mainstream appeal.
A Quiet Place is a horror film you could probably get away with showing a kid of about 10. Don't think they'd get too scared from it.
Just in terms of weak direction, I guess. The scene where they set up the nail in this floorboard. I mean, it's so unsubtle. Like, basically, this nail gets caught and ends up sticking up straight up where on a step.
I didn't think that was that bad, Alan. What did bother me was the fact that on the whiteboard 5 minutes earlier he'd written, "Don't stand on any nails," and he'd like underline "don't" and put 3 exclamation points after it.
I honestly don't know if you're joking or not with that. That's the trouble with this film. But yeah, it was really it was like it's zoomed into it, like, tracked into this nail as if to go, nail, look at the nail. And, it could be done better than that. Plus, why is there even a nail in that right there? Like, it's just...
I had that thought, because you would never put a nail in that piece of wood in that place to put a step there. It's like...
if you did it all, it would be the other way around. You'd be nailing it into something. It doesn't make any sense. So I thought that was quite poor. And that's just a very good example of kind of...
Well, it's because you don't see, Alan, but the house actually used to belong to Macaulay Culkin. And like it's like his Hollywood house out in the hills, and they took it over. Like when they go to Bill Murray's house in Zombieland, they were like, "Oh, Macaulay Culkin's house. That'll be a nice place to hide."
Oh, that makes sense then. Yes.
And that's why there's a deleted scene where Emily Blunt's going down to the basement and a tin of paint swings down and smacks her in the face, and she's not allowed to swear, so she just sort of goes "Rasha fresh" under her breath.
The other thing I just wanted to point out was there's a scene quite near the end where the kids have gone off and the parents are there with this baby, and there's a scene where basically the mother of the family is just totally guilt tripping the dad, and sort of obviously hates herself. She's just going on about how they let their child die, and if he lets their other children die, like they're just total failures as human beings. And it was just I think it was supposed to be kind of this emotional scene where they're like, yes, we're going to come together and save our family kind of thing. But it just came across really horribly, like she was just like a horrible piece of work, like guilt tripping him into going to save the kids, which he was going to do anyway. Like I don't know, it just felt really negative and horrible.
What I am doing is watch. Have you finished with your notes? Was that what you?
Yeah.
Okay. I am watching the trailer. That's what I will watch. I've watched the trailer 2 or 3 times. The trailer for part 2. Excuse me. Sorry, I need to make that clear.
Oh well, yeah, the second one's out imminently. Well, my big takeaway after watching, like, going back to this was basically I was thinking I think this would be a lot more interesting if we got to see the, ground zero. We got to see it all unfold and interact with the real world rather than just jumping straight forward to post-apocalyptic territory. I want to see apocalyptic, not post-apocalyptic. And I get why they didn't go that route, because budget, probably, more than anything. And also, I suppose there's far more opportunity to play with the core concept if you're not dealing with, bombastic chaos as the whole world falls apart. But they don't really capitalize on that. So I just want to see the world fall apart. And I watched the trailer for part 2 before we started recording, and it looks like we're going to get a lot of that. It looks like they're doing a Godfather Part 2, and they're going to kind of put some flashbacks in mixed in with sequel stuff. Although, curiously, there was no sign of John Krasinski in the flashbacks, and it seemed like, that's the whole way that they managed to get him back on screen.
Yeah. Given
that he has come back to direct it. But
well, the other problem they've got with the flashbacks is that the child actors they're using are too old. So
I don't know. Probably put some wonky CGI on them, won't they? That's what you do these days. I must say, I think the trailer looks very good, actually. I'm far more interested in seeing the film than I was before I watched it. I didn't really have any interest in a sequel to this film. The trailer, looks alright.
I think the film does not need a sequel in any way. So I was not interested. I watched the trailer. I can't say it particularly did anything for me. It's just more of the same, isn't it?
Prepare to be disappointed, Saul. I mean, this trailer, it's probably... my bet is that there will be some of the, apocalyptic scenes happening.
My worry is that's going to be the
most
opening.
of it will be with this,
yeah,
like with the post-apocalypse again, and they're going to deal with her and the baby and stuff.
My worry is that bit in the trailer where she's nearly getting hit by a bus and we see it all unfolding. My worry is that's going to be the opening of the film, and then it's going to go, boom, A Quiet Place Part 2, and then it's all going to be set after the film.
That's definitely the impression I got from the trailer, yeah.
That's exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah, I hope not. I think, if anything, it's a shame that we're following the same characters again. I kind of wish that John Krasinski had said, I have no interest in making a sequel to A Quiet Place, and he'd walked away, and Emily Blunt went, well, I'm not doing it without my husband. And then Jerry Bruckheimer was like, well, we own the rights to your film, so we're going to do A Quiet Place 2, and it's set in India or Colorado, or do you know what I mean? Just a new bunch of characters in a new setting with some new sort of obstacles and potential for ways to play with the concept that come with it. I just think it's a shame that we're largely most likely going to be getting more of the same instead of something a bit different.
To me, A Quiet Place seems to be something that he is using, like you brought up earlier, to break the mold about him, to make him a leading man. Like he's a leading man in Jack Ryan, but in a different fashion, perhaps.
I think he's more interested in setting himself up as a director, honestly. That's the impression I get. And I understand him putting Emily Blunt in it, because he's like, oh, I get to be with my wife for however many months out of the year that we'd be off filming separate projects normally.
Yeah, I don't understand that.
It's not. I'm not going to take issue with him for that. And yeah, he put himself in the lead in A Quiet Place, but why not? He's an actor. He makes sense in that part.
Yeah.
It's probably a budgetary thing more than anything.
But he'll have taken on the project as something that, like, yeah, this is a great role for me, the wife, and that's what I want to direct. Like, he'll have taken it on as a sort of package like that.
Yeah.
But I do notice that, I noticed that this sequel is written by John Krasinski, which the first one was not.
I must say, actually, Alan, John Krasinski does have one of the 3 screenplay by credits on the first A Quiet Place.
Does he?
Yeah. Brian Wood, Scott Beck, and John Krasinski. Because my understanding is he came on board and either rewrote a script or reworked it with the writers. I can't quite... I've heard him talk about it, but it wasn't his thing, but he does have a screenplay credit on it, so I do think he shaped it and probably made it fit his and his wife's sensibilities, I suppose. But, yeah, John Krasinski, the next Orson Welles.
Then he's going to fall much harder if this is Citizen Kane, man. Holy shit.
How would you approach a sequel then? Because, like I say, my approach would just be, all right, nice premise, let's do it again, but let's do it in... And then you spin a globe. Venezuela.
I mean, do you honestly think you're going to make a Hollywood film set in India or Venezuela?
Well, no, exactly. But, all right,
it's
let's
like,
do
look,
it.
it's an American family visiting Venezuela.
All right, let's do it in London.
Still
do
American.
It. You can get away with that because they'll go, all right, we'll film it in Pinewood and we'll get some British money. Or let's do it, but it's set in Miami on the seaside. And we'll get, like, someone good in it, like John C. Reilly and Willem Dafoe. Oh, that's what you do. That is what you do. It's A Quiet Place starring Brian Blessed as himself and 2 really loud actors as themselves trying to be quiet.
Okay, what about if it's Brian Blessed and the Blue Man Group and
Kevin Smith? They get Kevin Smith because they think, oh, he'll be quiet because he's Silent Bob, but then the twist is he actually never shuts the fuck up, and they just can't stop him going on about like Batman and working with Ben Affleck and Bruce Willis being a dick and stuff. And he gets them all killed.
No, I think for a sequel, guys, like I think we need sort of like a thematic sequels, like not necessarily like the same gimmick. I mean, because we've got Bird Box and A Quiet Place, okay? What I realized was that the next one, logically, is a film where you're not allowed to smell anything. So you call it like a smelly place.
That's Walk Hard.
Then I realized that Alan is right, and this has actually happened. M. Night Shyamalan has actually done a sequel or a prequel already called The Happening. Because you can't smell anything in that. Like, otherwise the plants will tell you to kill yourself.
I think we should go in the opposite direction, and it should be you can't stop making noise below however many decibels, otherwise the bus will explode.
Guys, we haven't rated the film. Should we do that to finish?
Oh, that's probably a good idea. Yeah. Well, I give it a 7. It's a very 7/7. It's the most 77 I've given in a while.
Well, I was really borderline 6 to 7. And I ended up just giving it a 7, quite a low 7. But, like as we said, I think conceptually, as just a sort of general experience, it's fine. It works. It just feels like there's so much more potential. I think that's why we've come across as quite negative, I think. But yeah, it's just a 7 for me.
Yeah, 6 out of 10 for myself. Because I generally go by like out of 5. I don't know why that's how I tend to rate films. So for me, it's a straight 6.
What?
6 out of 5.
Why does rating it out of
6 out
5?
of 5.
6 out of
That's pretty
10.
good.
Sorry, no,
Best
6
film
out of
ever.
10.
I don't
That's a 3 out of 5.
understand. It's weird that, isn't it? Like a 7 out of 10 really is like a 4 out of 5.
That's
or a 3.5
the thing.
out of 5, but it just doesn't feel right.
And
yeah,
I'm definitely not that positive about it. I mean, with all due respects to what they're trying to do with their careers, and it's like it's a great potential, but there's lots of compromises, but compromises in terms to what it could have been, as opposed to compromises into getting butts in seats, which it did do very successfully, so much so that it's warranted a big budget sequel. So it's it did its part well. It's just not really my cup of whiskey.
Right. Well, I hope this episode wasn't too quiet for you. Well,
All right,
come back next time. Come back next time.
It's clear he isn't going anywhere. I'm just going to stop. Yeah.
Come back next time for more quiet talk. Come back next time. See you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Connor, again for joining us. By the way.
Thanks for having me, guys. It was a pleasure. It was a pleasure. And just to let you know, I was communicating in sign language for our deaf listeners.
Oh, wonderful.